All right. All the tournament focus seems to be even more so on the central part of the country, the east, the southeast. We're seeing anglers relocating from Arizona and California and moving to Alabama and places to the east. But there's still some bass fishing happening on the West Coast and some big tournaments and some things growing in one bass. And I got a guest today to talk about some recent West Coast tournaments and somebody that's actually going from the east to the west. I don't know what that's all about, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. What's going on, Kurt?
What's up, Rich, man? Great to be here on your HellaBass Live.
Yeah. So HellaBass Live, presented as always by Arsenal Fishing and boosted by Powerhouse Lithium. So ready to rock and roll tonight. Kurt Dove, the Birdman, former Bassmaster Elite Series pro, former Major League Fishing FLW pro, uh,
Lots of
current
formers.
2025 Bass Nation qualifier, national championship, which we'll talk about, and a guy that grew up fishing the banks of the Potomac in Virginia and keeps moving his way west, both physically and to fish. So I don't know what that's all about. Did
That's totally backwards, is
you
what that's
bucking
about.
the trends?
Yeah, man. It is. It's different than most, but I'm doing it at an older age. Most people go west to east at a young age, so as I grow older, I'm going more east to west. So
Yeah. So interesting. Yeah. So Kurt and I actually have known each other or met a long time ago. That was what 2007 ish, somewhere right
yes,
around there. The year that Derek Remitz won his first ever Bassmaster Elite Series tournament.
that was '07.
Uh,
Yeah,
I
right
fished
here at
that
Lake
event.
Amistad.
I fished that event as a co, and I think I went back out on the water during day four, and was just kind of fishing on the not too far from the takeoff down that end of the lake, just kind of trying to stay out of people's way. But I was on vacation from Minnesota. I wanted to be fishing up a little bit, and ran into some guy with a wrap in the back of a pocket, fishing with his son. I think, right?
No,
Were you by
not
yourself?
my son.
No, that was
Yeah,
by
I
yourself.
was I was actually fishing with Andrew Binky. I want to say
Okay,
Lemke. How do you say?
all
He's
right.
actually from your neck of the woods. He is the gosh. I can't believe his last name's drawing a blank right now, but he his father worked for Mercury,
All right.
and anyway, I was fishing with him and his buddy. He fishes the MLF
All right.
invitationals right now, I believe.
Sure. But anyways, we ended up chatting, kind of casually talking, and kind of maybe just stayed in touch a little bit through social media
Yep.
over the years. Um, and So you kind of you did the Elite Series for several years. Moved over to MLF for a while, or FLW at the time. I don't remember which one it was.
Yep.
Uh, you've had a very solid career. A state established, a veteran journeyman. Uh,
I think that's the perfect word, journeyman. Yes, I've
yeah,
had a journeyman career.
done some opens, done a lot of things. You kind of fished at all levels for the most part.
Yeah.
Um, and now kind of these days you did some things. You worked a long time with Aaron Martin, right? No
Yes,
S, right?
that's
On
correct.
Bass Edge Radio, collaborated
That's
for a
right.
long time, and now
Yep.
you're kind of taking that over solo.
Right.
So,
Yep.
so maybe
So
talk about that a little bit.
yeah, just doing some podcasting. I feel like with professional angling, in order to be a journeyman like myself without any, big national wins, but, some top tens and being very involved in the industry, the way to do that is to matriculate yourself all through different platforms. So, guiding down here at Lake Amistad was, my original thing when I came from Virginia, and it was being in podcasts with Bass Edge Radio. It was working with lure manufacturers. Now I'm a general manager of Hayabusa Fishing Hooks. So, yeah, I think that's part of making a career and a living in the bass fishing industry is not being one dimensional. Unless you're really good at fishing, like Jordan Lee or Kevin Van Dam, and go through all these guys that I've competed with throughout my career. But unfortunately, I wasn't. as good overall to be a top 10 percenter and really make a good living just bass fishing. So I had to find
Yeah.
those other routes.
It's multiple revenue streams.
Yes,
It's important.
absolutely.
In many parts of life, it's more important to have multiple revenue streams.
Yeah,
So you also
yeah,
run. So you live in Del Rio, Texas now, right?
yes.
Shores of Lake Amistad. You still
Yep,
do
moved
some
down here in
guiding or not?
'08. I do. I do still guiding probably, 30 to 50 days a year, just
Okay.
depending on my schedule and what's going on. But I guided here full time for about 7 years and built a strong client base and still take many of those folks out and some new folks that come to Lake Amistad or I meet on the road or wherever. So yeah, absolutely, man. And Lake Amistad still has its excellence.
Mhm.
You saw that in the NPFL earlier this year. A couple really big bags, a 28, 29 pound bag, a couple 10 pounders. I like South
Yeah.
Texas.
Clay Williamson says he remembers seeing Kurt's cards everywhere in Del Rio when he's in high school. It must have been your guide cards, I assume.
Yeah,
Uh,
probably.
and he wants to know if Anglers Inn still has top-notch breakfast burritos.
Great question. Um, no, they do not because they're no longer around. They actually bulldozed Anglers in. Um, we hit some hard times here in 2013, 2014, 2015, and the owners of that decided to walk away. And now it is that piece of property is rebuilt with some Airbnbs. So they do still have excellent breakfast burritos in Del Rio, Texas. Being on the border, anything semi Mexican as far as eats,
Sure,
top notch.
legit. Yeah,
Top
I know.
notch.
Last time, not exactly the same, but last time I went and visited my dad in Zapata, the what is the gas station that has the good tacos in Zapata?
Stripes. Yeah,
Stripes. Yeah.
stripes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um. Okay. So Byron's Hotel is no more, I assume.
Byron's Hotel is not a hotel. It is they turned it into condos. So they've done some
Yeah.
redeveloping, kind of, brought a couple rooms together to make condominiums over there. So yeah, it's still around, but anyway, not not in its capacity of Anglers. Was
So
it
how many days
Anglers
a
Life? Yeah.
year are you fishing Amistad typically?
I would say 60 to 70 days
Yeah,
per
yeah.
year,
Nice.
ballpark. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still
So,
get around. I'm not fishing nearly. I At some one point in my career, I was fishing about 15 to 16 tournaments a year. I was
right.
fishing all the Elite Series events. I was fishing Bassmaster Open events at the same time, and I was fishing the MLF Selects. So I did that for about 3 years, and that was a big schedule. So that took more time away from my fishing here at Amistad than it does now because I'm only fishing about 5 to 8 tournaments a year. I still do my youth fishing camps down here. Do a youth fishing camp up at Lake Oneida in New York as well. So that's part of
Yeah.
my fun away from Hayabusa. But yeah, so I'm spending more time here at Amistad than maybe I did when I was full time and on the Elite Series and FLW Tour.
Yeah. So talk about the fish camps a little bit because that's it's been around for a minute now,
It's been
right?
around since 2011. We kicked that thing off. So we do youth fishing camp here at Lake Amistad. We do 2 weeks of camp here at Lake Amistad and 1 week up at Lake Oneida in New York, just outside of Syracuse, which hosts some elite events back in the day. They do some more open events now. They haven't had a elite event up there in a while, but yeah, it's a ton of fun. We teach kids 12 to 18 years old that are highly interested in bassing, the ways to go about proper bassing. So that's kind of what we do nowadays, and it's a lot of fun. We've got some great instructors from Hall of Famers like Denny Brower helps me out down here at Lake Amistad. Some stalwart veterans like Dave Mansue, guide up at Table Rock Lake now, and Dave's used to live at Toledo Bend, lived all over the country, used to fish the top 150s. I don't want to leave anybody out. Rick Harris doing really well right now in the MLF
Hmm.
Invitationals. He's been helping with the camp a lot. So yeah, we try to bring out the some of the old school guys that like to pass their knowledge on to youth anglers, as well as some of the new generation fellows. We had Hugh Cosquela, who almost qualified for the elites a couple years ago. He was with us last year, and we've just run a gamut on instructors, and it's a lot of fun. Again, it's full time, 4 days of fishing, 4 nights here at Lake Amistad, and we bring a group of about 24 to 30 kids, just depends every year on our lodging situation, and that's for each session, and teach them how to fish, and give seminars in the evening. It's an all-inclusive camp. They get jerseys, tackle packs, t-shirts. We sent 3 kids last year to the Bassmaster High School Combine, and all of them got scholarships to colleges. So that was super cool. So, yep, we're just doing the best we can to spread our passion for bass fishing to the younger generation. And most of them, some of them are new to bass fishing, but most of them already know bassing, and
Right.
just kind of want to take their high school program or their college fishing potential career to the next level. We actually had one camper win the Boat US. I think it was the Boat US. It was one of the college national championships on Lake Murray. Nick Skolnick from
Wow.
TCU. He was going to TCU. He's originally from Kansas. And we get kids from all over the country: Kansas, Alabama, Mississippi, Ohio, uh, Louisiana, obviously New York, Maryland. Anyway, it's a fun deal, man.
Absolutely. Are there any? So you have one coming up at the end of May here in just 3, 4 weeks here. Are that all filled up?
Yeah, yeah, they pretty much fill up, or I kind of cap them, I should say, because there's a lot of logistics to go behind it, getting
Sure.
the proper number of instructors. We only have fish 2 campers with one instructor, so that they can, really focus on the campers and give them, great instruction while they're here.
Hmm.
So usually we kind of shut it down about 30 days out. So this year we're pretty much done. New York actually filled up real fast this year. These A lot of the kids from Texas that went to New York told all their buddies about the smallmouth, and, uh, and they started kind of gravitating a little bit that way. So
So you're all booked for all season.
yeah, yeah, we're all squared away for 2024. We will start up 2025 registration in the fall. So
So I assume
usually
you
I
can, like, if you had somebody that was interested, you could email here on the website and get on a list to be notified when things happen, I assume.
That is correct. They can go right to probasscamp.com. We're actually coming with a new website very soon. It's in the editing process right now, but yeah, they can go right to the website. And we also have an Instagram page that's pretty active. It's active, very active during the camps. But if you fire us
Sure.
a DM or something, we'll see it and get right back to you.
Nice. So is Panger doing anything this year? Is the schedule allow it to be an instructor?
Panger is coming to the New York event this year. Yes.
Will he only take the kids perch fishing, or will they actually be able to bass fish during that trip?
Oh, they bass fish, but only with spinning rods.
No Carolina rigs allowed.
That's
So
right.
Panger will
No,
not be leading a
no bait
Carolina rig
casters.
seminar.
No bait casters allowed. Panger's
No.
done a few seminars for the camp, and he generally talks about his statistics of success with the finesse gear. A lot of a lot of the campers take heed to it and utilize it. I think obviously finesse fishing these days is
Mhm.
just as important, if not more important. I think if you go to some tackle retailer and ask them, like, what's the best selling rod and reel combos, it's probably spinning rods these days. Probably 6.5 to 7 foot spinning rods. Bait casters are out, man. Out of style.
Yeah. It's
In many parts of the country.
So the Oneida camp is in July, I think.
Yeah, that's correct. It's July 7th through 11 this year.
That is about the same time as the.
There is a Champlain toy. Is it Toyota?
It's almost exactly the time of the Northern Open, the first Division III Open
That could be.
on St. Clair, which would
Yeah,
make me wonder how Panger would have time to do that. But
yeah. Well, let's look at the. I don't even. I'm not sure the
he
tournament
probably doesn't
schedule
even
there on
know.
the opens.
Anyways, but
Panger said he's going to be
so
there. We'll see how it works out.
maybe it's like right where your camp is right after, so he goes right from St. Clair right to there, maybe, or something like that. But or maybe
Yeah,
it's right before it starts. I don't know. I, he might want maybe he's so confident on his finesse game he doesn't need any practice for St. Clair.
yeah, that is true. It could be. Um, yeah, no, I think the next open afterwards is at there's Eufaula, June 20 through 22. And there is St. Clair. Look at that, July 11th through 13th.
So that
So
you are right in the practice.
we are dead in the practice. Yes. So,
You might want to text Panger next week after the Logan Martin Open
right,
and just
right.
reconfirm things there.
He's got a couple more events before he gets to St. Clair. So we'll see what happens.
uh, yeah. Anyways, yeah. So fishing the Open there. So that'll be my first Bassmaster Open ever.
Right, right. That'll
But
be fun.
yeah,
St. Clair's a great place to do it.
absolutely. Should be fun. Uh so you recently we have to kind of talk about this. So last year you fished, did you do the Bassmaster Opens last year? Or no,
No,
what'd you do last year? MLF,
last year
Toyotas?
I did the Northern Toyotas
Okay.
and a Western Toyota. I cruised over to Havasu in the early part of the year before
Mhm.
the others kicked off because the goal was to qualify for the Toyota Championship. Probably, in my opinion, economically the best route to make the
Right.
biggest splash in bass
Right.
fishing going right now. So that was the plan. Did good at Havasu, had a top 10, finished eighth, cruised on up to Champlain, finished middle of the pack, not very good, and
Mhm.
then went to St. Clair and just dumped it. I think I finished 130th out of like a 200. Then cruised over to the Potomac where I grew up and finished 15th. Uh, just enough to be like 8 points out on the wild card division because of two mediocre kind of
Could you have
sucky
fished more
finishes.
Toyotas and got your points up or not? Can you keep fishing and
Yeah,
adding them?
you
And
could.
so,
I could have
yeah.
fished the Lake of the Ozarks event, which would have been the last Toyota event last year to up my point total to make the
Mhm.
Table Rock Championship. But at that point, I'd already thrown down and felt like, hey, man, I had my shot. I had other things going on in the fall. Um, and so I was out. sometimes in tournament bassing, you call uncle.
Do you think you were the only angler that fished both the Havasu and the Champlain event?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think so. There was actually one gentleman from Texas that I met at the Havasu event, and he might have fished the Northerns. I'm not 100%
Okay.
sure, but there could have been one other person.
So, but this year you changed strategies and you decided to go further west.
Yes.
So,
Most,
walk us what you are fishing
yeah.
this year and what was your kind of plan or why? Because it's a unique strategy.
Yeah, most of my strategies are thoughtfully provoked. So I don't do a whole lot on a whim. But I knew that, California had gotten a lot of rain in 2023. And actually, the winter between 2022 and 2023. And a lot of those lakes came up, and fishing was pretty good. Clear Lake had been very poor. It was down like 7 feet. Bassin was tough. Same with Shasta. It was down like 150 feet or something crazy, and it came up to almost full pool. And I said, man, California, like South Texas, can go through some droughts and make some fishing tough. But when the water comes up, it can get good real
Hmm.
quick. So I was like, obviously had some success at Havasu last year, and I had been on the Elite Series to Clear Lake before, to the California Delta, and Havasu, actually the one that Aaron Martins won. And I had some fond memories of that. I had a 28 and a half pound bag at Clear Lake last time I was there in 2007. That was the year
Yeah.
that Steve Kennedy won the big Huddleston swim bait bass tricks thing going on. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to re-experience the western fisheries and Juan Bass because there was another tour out there called the Apex Tour and the Wild Wild West Trail went defunct. So I felt like there was going to be a good amount of participation with the Juan Bass because they extended their trail to a series of 5 tournaments, which the final tournament was the U.S. Open, which I had fished many times. I don't say many, but about 4 times in the past when it was at Lake Mead. And so I thought, I'm going to jump in. Let's go. I had made this decision in like October before they even announced some of their changes that they were going to have, which was the qualifying for the Bass Nation National Championship for the top 5 anglers in each event, and on down the road. They've done a lot of neat things, and so that's why I wanted to go out west, man. It was just experience
Sure.
something new. I'm getting to the point where I'm not chasing um, tournaments for a final goal as much like fishing the Toyota Series to make the invitationals or fishing the invitationals to make the BBT or fishing the opens to make the Elite Series. It doesn't mean I won't fish those events, but I want to just go do my thing and have a good time. And if I'm having fun, I think that's my best chance for success because I want to be there. I'm excited about it. It's got nothing to do with, oh, this tournament sucks on the schedule, or I just want to go have a good time at all these places. So that's kind of where I've been, and that's why I fished what I did last year. I went to Havasu from one of the Toyotas and fished all the Northerns. It kind of worked out with what I was doing. I look at the dates, my work schedule, those kinds of things. Boom, here we are at One Bass for 2024.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's cool. So they've had one event,
two
two.
two events.
So
We kicked off the season in February, late
okay.
January, last week of January, first week of February at Lake Shasta in super northern California,
Sure.
about 30 minutes north of Redding, California. And then event number 2 was at Clear Lake, which took place, in last month in April. Yeah, we're May 1st already. So that was last month in April, a couple weeks ago. And my next event number 3 in this tournament series is going to be at Lake Havasu. I think it's the 15th through the 17th of May. And then we don't have another event until September, which will be at Lake Mead, which is the middle of September. And then the final and 5th event will be the U.S. Open in October on Lake Mojave. And really, those last 3, I live like right in the middle of the country. A lot of people don't realize there's a town about 30 miles from me called Bracketville, Texas. It's this wee little town. Um, Del Rio's not very big. We got
Mhm.
40,000 people here at Lake Amistad, thereabouts. And somewhere between here and Bracketville, which is about 30 miles from me, is the geographic middle of the United States between Jacksonville, Florida, and San Diego, California. So it's kind of interesting. I live like almost like in the middle of the U.S. So driving to NorCal is similar to driving to Virginia or New York, and driving to the Colorado River fisheries, Havasu, Meade, Mojave, is basically about the same as driving to Ross Barnett in Mississippi. So it's uh, it's not terribly too far for 3 of the events. The first 2 events, yeah, that was some giddy up going on there with
Sure.
the driving, but I'm used to that living where I do in the country. It's kind of similar to the Minnesota folk like yourself. Um, you got to do a little
So
driving.
you had a pretty good finish at Clear Lake. I think you took sixth. Is that
6th, that is correct. I took 6th place.
so three
Yep.
day total? Like what was the I mean, I think you had
I
a
had 71 and change on
yeah.
3 days. I
So
averaged,
almost
I think it
25 pounds
was,
a day and you were
yeah, just a little under 25 a day. I think it was 23 and 3/4 or something crazy like that. There you go. That's day 2 bag right there.
and
Day
that was
2
your big
bag.
day, right? You had that was kind of like your anchor day, right? Like the
That was the anchor day. I had 32:44 on day two. Yeah, that was the reason why I wanted to go to California, and it happened. It happened. It all came together on day two.
So, what was what was the Clear Lake doing, and how did you catch them?
Yeah, just kind of break down the pattern for sure. So the first day I got there, water temps were rising into the low 60s. I started seeing a lot of the northern end of Clear Lake is really shallow. The middle section and the lower part of Clear Lake is a little bit deeper water oriented. The northern part really fishes like a Santee Cooper or somewhere like that, real lowland impoundment, even though it's up in the mountains. That's how it fishes. It warms up fast. The fish charge the bank quick when the water temps come up. And I saw that coming. Then we had a quick little cold front. Actually had snow in some of the hills there, not at lake elevation, but just
Right.
above lake elevation. We had some snow and kicked the water temps back down. And then we had from there to basically Monday, Tuesday practice days, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of the event, just a steady climb of water temps. And so my focus was go mid lake, down lake, try and catch pre spawners. As the water temps warm throughout the afternoon or midday, come back to the northern section of the lake and try to capitalize on either some fish getting really close or even on spawning beds. So that
Right.
was kind of my ticket. And so I threw jerk baits and targeted some outside pre-spawn staging areas with finesse presentations and swim baits down lake, and then came back up lake and really kind of threw some swim baits. They call the reeds there toolies. It goes either way with me, but they're round instead of flat, so they call them toolies. And I concentrated in the later part of the day throwing swim baits with an underspin and also kind of firing finesse plastics like 4-inch Senkos and things that you could target floating pre-spawners without spooking them. So that was kind of the game plan. And then as the tournament progressed, the last day, every fish but one I weighed in was on sight fish. So um, yeah, that was
When you
kind of
say
the pattern and how it all set up.
swim baits, you're talking like 3.8s to 4-inch, like smaller, moderate.
For me, that's what I used. Yes, that's correct. Um, for most of those natives out there, the local Cali boys, they're freaking throwing like these 7 and 9 inch glide baits. But I don't have the confidence to be hurling that around after 3 or 4 days of practice. So I didn't hurl it around in the tournament. I was throwing 3/8, yeah,
Yeah. I think the winner caught
style
a fair amount of his fish on
Southwest.
a glide bait, I think,
He
right?
did. I think early in the tournament it was hard glide bait bite and a soft swim bait bite were big keys for a lot of anglers catching big weights. And then again, as it progressed, that bite, I don't want to say it fizzled, but wasn't as prolific, and more guys were sight fishing and catching fish either on the bed or just very very close.
Right
It
on.
changed
Cool.
rapidly. It really changed
Yeah.
rapidly, which
And
helped me. I feel like it helped me as an out of towner because if I'm luckily I made some good decisions, and as I made those good decisions, not having any history there, it allowed me to fish very freely.
very cool. And then I think all of One Bass is on the AAA format, the Pro Am
Yes,
AAA shared weight. So maybe just kind of
the
talk about how that sets up, and I don't know, what do you think of it as a boater now after fishing a couple events?
so in the U.S. Open events, I've fished all U.S.
So you,
Open
yeah,
events from
yeah,
here from the time of inception. I believe were
right.
pro AAA events. What that means is you're paired with a different co-angler, that's a general term, each day. And that co-angler and you are basically fishing a team tournament that day in all essence. And whatever you catch that day, that's your weight and that co-angler's weight for that day. So you're keeping your 5 best fish in the boat for that day. And I love this format. It's a lot of fun. Um, I don't have to worry about, you know, blocking something out so that I catch all the fish. I just want the boat to catch the fish. So I am preparing almost like in a sense, like a guide
Mhm.
to a degree. I mean, I want to target the fish. I want to catch the fish because I have more confidence in myself than a AAA taking control of
Right.
potentially losing or setting the hook of a fish and that kind of thing. But you do still work together. So, like when I pull up on a spot, say, hey man, this is how this sets up. And I'll tell them, hey, this Thule line comes out. It's rocky out here on this edge. I'm going to be firing up on the point because that's where I see some fish on the scope. You kind of fire up on the point too, but just go left or right and be close to the primary area. But if I move on, keep firing at that. You know, who knows?
Yeah.
One might go. And for example, in day two of this event, um, I had a AAA Chris Crawford. That's who I had the 32-44 with, and I had a 5.5 on a jerk bait out of the gate. I had a 7.5 on a drop shot out of the gate. Then I started seeing some floaters, and I caught another one, and then he caught one. Then he caught one. Then basically we were teamed up to where I was throwing the swim bait on the outside of the Thule's, and if I would visually see one, I would say, "Oh, Chris, there's one, to the left of that clump that has the dead one, the dead Thule on it or something, and he might toss over there and catch one while I'm trying to work the swim bait." And ultimately together we found out that they would, eat a small soft plastic. And when we exited the midsection of the lake, when I was done with my morning routine and went to the upper end of the lake, man, I had seen the effectiveness of the soft plastic and the swim bait bite that we were already working mid lake, and just was able to capitalize on that even more and develop that into a couple extra quality fish as the day progressed. I mean, I think we ended up with two sevens, a six, and two fives, all of those with some change, obviously, to add up to 32-44. But it's interesting. You never know what's going to. I weighed in four of those fish, and he had caught one of them. I think is how that day ended up. The final day of the event, I was sight fishing. I weighed in all five of the fish that we weighed in, and my co-angler still gets the same weight. But that's kind of the way that whole thing works. The first day of the tournament, I think we weighed in three of the Triple A's fish and only two of my fish. So it's some random stuff kind of going on, but you're putting in the program, you're putting in the practice time, you're putting yourself and your team around the fish, and man, what a great format it is to kind of culminate, um, you know, inclusiveness for everybody to work together every day separately. I think that's why the co-angler participation is so down on BFLs and Toyotas and Opens and these kinds of things, because there's guys sitting on the front, they're just using their screens and they're firing at fish, and they could be over 50 foot of water, and the co-angler's back there like, this is a joke. so so I don't know
Yeah,
where that's
I think
going, but
yeah,
that's the gist.
yeah, I don't know how much, and I think that's a little bit of a stigma. We actually talked about this last week. Like, I think if knowing that your boater's on fish and you're around fish should be a good thing.
Yeah,
Uh, anyways, just because you're going down a Thule line, you feel more comfortable doesn't mean there's actually fish in that Thule line.
that's correct.
So,
That's correct.
anyways, so a couple things here. Stephanie asked, "What's a AAA?" AAA and co-angler are kind of used interchangeably on the one bass series, right? I think they just like to use the word AAA. Kind of count. I think the reference is there. It's one rung below pro, right? Like baseball, right? I think that's what they're trying to. It's basically it's the training grounds to become pro and make
Yeah,
it less of a non-boater co-angler stigma. So, but essentially, it is a co-angler. It's an amateur. It's a non-boater. It's that. Um,
yeah. They pay a
there's a
less
couple
entry
questions on
fee and that whole
yeah.
nine yards.
So you're fishing with a reduced entry fee. You're fishing for reduced winnings, but this is a shared weight, and that's what's unique about this. There's a couple questions here. A AAA co-angler does not have to weigh a fish. They could catch
No,
all five and anything in between.
that's right.
Um, yeah, love bringing everybody together in the community. Absolutely, Shane. See, Colby says he's heading to June 1st to Meade for the Federation Regional. So I think this is
Nice.
the yeah. Um, he's got a Koengler scope setup, so that'd be cool.
That is cool.
Let's see here if I missed anything else. Yeah, but I think overall it's pretty positive, and it creates a team environment. I think some of the stuff that I think Koengler's down is there's some pros out there that don't treat their Koenglers very well,
Absolutely.
and I think that has a lot more to do with it than the scope or anything else. And I think to some degree this AAA style, but I do get there's a place for the AAA, but I don't think a shared. I think there's a place for shared weight in bass tournaments at a
Hmm.
high level, but I think at a certain point it can't be at the elite, it can't be at the BPT, and it can't be at the qualifying for those, right?
I would
I don't
agree
think you
with
should be able
that.
to qualify for the Bassmaster Classic in a shared weight event.
I would
You know what
agree
I'm
with that.
saying? Like, yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Um, so yeah, but I think so. We actually have a we used to have a what was called the Silverado Pro Am Tour back in like the 90s and 2000s in Minnesota, and that was a shared weight 8 fish tournament,
Oh
and that was
wow.
pretty popular for a while as well here. But
That's cool.
you get to work together, and then there was
Yep.
stories from everything. Right, my co didn't catch a fish, and he won whatever 3 grand that day, and he
Right,
never,
right, right.
and then you got other ones where boaters had really good days and cashed nice checks, and their co caught all 8 fish, and everything in between, right? So,
That
uh,
probably a rarity, but yeah, certainly those things can happen, no doubt,
and I
no
think
doubt.
it actually works better over a 3-day tournament. A
Yeah,
single day tournament, anything could happen, right? Like, you could have an unbelievably ninja co that just takes
right,
over and
right.
does the thing and figures it all out for you and catches all the fish,
Yes.
especially in a 5 fish tournament. But over a 3-day tournament, things will work themselves out.
Yeah, and honestly, those things used to happen in the Elite Series. When I first started fishing the Elites in '06, '07, '08, we had co-anglers, and co-anglers could put an Elite Series angler on a bite. That
Sure.
happened many times before.
I mean, for a
Um,
couple of reasons, right? Like, co-anglers could practice,
yes.
so they could have found fish, and I'm not saying it happened to quick. Kirk could have like showed up at Pickwick,
Yep.
had a terrible practice, runs his shad spawn in the morning, hits his first 3 ledge spots, and's got nothing. And he's got Jim Bob from Florence, Alabama, and he's like, "Yeah, I've been out here a little bit. I got some stuff we can run." And all of a sudden, you guys
I got
both
a
got
shell
24
bed right over
pounds.
there. Right, right. That
Or right,
stuff happened. Now, in the Elite Series, they couldn't share information like that.
oh, okay,
But if I was slinging a spinnerbait in the shad spawn, and and that ended, and then I started Carolina rigging some shell beds, and he picked up a football jig and started slamming them. You know, I ain't
probably
no
like whipped
dummy.
out an old BPS swimmer or something and
Yeah,
slow
yeah,
rolled that around on Wheeler or Pickwick,
that's
and
right. So yeah, it happened even at the high levels until they stopped having co-anglers, which was what 2011, 2011ish.
yeah.
Wasn't that long ago. It's only been like 10,
I
12
mean, that
years.
happens
So
all over at the BFLs and the Toyotas and the
oh,
Bassmaster Opens.
absolutely.
They clue people in. They give you ideas. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. The other thing I like about the Wand Bass stuff, which I'm not saying I don't like about Bassmaster or the Toyotas, but when you go travel somewhere at the Wand Bass, you fish all 3 days, period. Very similar to
Uh-huh.
the MPFL. I like the
Sure.
MPFL for that also. You get to go fish all 3 days, and that is very attractive from a expense standpoint to having fun standpoint, enjoying the process while you're on a fishery. And I think that's important. Obviously, maybe not at the Elite Series or BBT level, but I think that's really important at the Toyota, maybe even the Opens, and certainly for me, fishing the Wand Bass level. So
Yeah,
it's
for
fun.
sure.
I want to go
I think
fishing.
in those, I think bigger. Yeah, I mean, I think there's still some place for cuts, right? Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know. I mean, if you got 100 boat field, maybe needs to knock it down to 50 on the final day, but like, right. But I mean, yeah, like some of those, right, where the opens is harsh, right? You got 220 boats and only 10 guys are fishing
Yeah,
the third day.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
pretty harsh.
That is
Um,
harsh.
so
Yeah.
right on. So yeah, the Hayabusa. How long you been working with Hayabusa?
2017.
Wow.
Soon as I started getting old enough where I'm like, man, am I ever going to retire one day? Because this is what happens with your income level with sponsorships when you're a journeyman. You've got really good years and things are good, and then some years are like, oh, am I going to make it this year? so, so that was in 2017. I think my last year I fished the elites was 15. And then I started fishing the FLW Tour in 16 and 17. I'd have to go back and look. It's been so long, but anyway, it was 2017 when I started working with Hayabusa, and we, strategically, economically, grown a solid sales numbers and are continuing to brand grow as well, just from a recognition standpoint. But yeah, if you've never checked them out, Hayabusa Fishing Hooks. They're great product. A lot of fundamental hooks, round bends, O'Shaughnessy's, wacky hook, EWGs. We've got a few lead heads, like Ned rig style
Mhm.
hooks, and yeah, swim jigs. We've done a signature swim jig with Brian Schmidt, probably one of the best swim jiggers in the country, especially as far as fishing outside grass lines. Something that you do a lot on grass fisheries is get out and those pressured fish kind of move out. So it's called the little Schmitty appropriately, and he
Yeah.
calls the technique slow and low. So that's winding slow and keeping it low in the water column, and it was very effective for him in getting him to where he is in this part of his career. So it's a cool place to hang out, man. Hayabusa is a lot of fun. We got some other established pros on the Elite Series, such as right now Logan Latuso. Actually, he was
Sure.
promoting the straight shank hook there. I believe at Harris, or no, at St. John's. He had a top 10 there, I believe, at St. John's, and and the list goes on. I don't want to get into trying to name
Yeah.
everybody, but yeah, it's a great little staff. Go online, hayabusafishing.com. You can check us
There's
out there.
there's a better way. We'll get to that, Kurt. But
There
Aaron,
you
who
go.
also always has very strong opinions in the comments here, he says he loves the Hayabusa drop shot. He says it's the best hook for smallies up in the
Awesome.
Northeast. So,
Love to hear it.
um,
Love to hear it, Aaron.
I think it would be more appropriate for people to go to Omnia Fishing and where they have a great selection of Hayabusa hooks,
Yes,
Kurt. So
Omnia
I actually
does.
ordered this 2-aught hook the other day, thinking it might be good for power shotting like magic worms. Do you think it's too heavy for that, or is that a good
No,
hook for that?
yeah, it depends on the weight of your line. Are you trying
Yeah,
to
I'm
mid
thinking like
finesse?
16-pound Texas rig and a Texas drop shot rig of a, yeah,
So you're going to want
16
to
to
go to
20
the
pound
3.0
bait
for
cat.
that. Yeah, you're going to want
Okay.
to go to the 3.0 model for that. The
All right.
1.0 and 2.0 and the FPP is going to be great for open hook drop shotting or Texas rig drop shotting. That's kind of, or very light finesse Texas rigging.
Okay.
Once you get to that 3.0 model level, then you get into a little bit of the right wire guard for, or the wire strength for, 15, 16 pound test.
Sure.
And it
Okay.
kind of goes on up from there.
Well, good thing I got Omnia Premium Pro where I can just order another pack and they'll ship it to me tomorrow before my tournament.
Yes.
So,
Yes. That is very nice.
I also ordered these.
So Omnia is your favorite retailer.
Yeah, absolutely.
They are a
Um,
good retailer.
so I ordered these because I liked that they had these in number fives,
Yes.
which not always easy to find number fives, which is a nice in between for a lot of square bills and flat sides and certain things like that.
Yeah, even like adding some weight to a jerk bait, on
Or like
on the
a front
hook.
hook on a jerk bait if you want to get a little
Yes,
deeper or faster sink.
you
Absolutely.
got
So
it. You got it.
I haven't tried these yet, but I recently bought some of these.
So, if anybody has ever watched Nick LeBrun, he is a TBL 930 junkie.
All right.
He loves to change out two O's on his or excuse me, the number
Flopper.
twos on his whopper plopper
Yeah.
and his walking baits and his square bills and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. And so if anybody wants to save, if you think some of these Hayabusa hooks or Hayabusa hooks or anything, there's a code scrolling down the bottom of the screen there to save 15%.
There you
Uh,
go. Look at
so
that. I
there you
love
go.
it. I love it. And they just reordered. They just restocked. So Omnia should be plenty ready for some
Nice.
orders. Yes.
Aaron says he gave TW the boot. He says Omni has the best shipping time.
Yeah. I can see that, there's a lot of logistical
They're very
issues.
centrally located, shipping out of Minneapolis for a lot of people. It works pretty well.
Absolutely.
Jim likes
Absolutely.
the number fives for jerk baits. What
Awesome.
so any other sneaky things to mention on the old Hayabusas?
Well,
I know I bought some of these a lot. These I didn't. I hid the. Let me go back here. I actually bought some of these brush easy jigs years ago.
yes.
Kind of a sneaky little Ned finesse type jig head kind of.
Lightweight shallow netting, it works
Yeah,
wonders. Comes in a
yeah.
1/0 size, in a 16th and a 1/10 ounce, and yeah, that's a great netter bait. I talked earlier about the swim jigs. Swim jigs really popular in your part of it. Actually, that swim jig comes with an FPP 40 hook, so it's a great
I
inliner.
have not tried the swim jig yet.
Good stuff. It comes with the FPP 40. And if you're into the big punching, we have the cool thing about Hayabusa. Let me explain a little bit. Is
Sure.
let's say for instance the round bend, the 114 is a medium wire. Right? It used to be. Let's say back in the day, if you wanted a medium wire hook, you bought a Gamakatsu. If you wanted a
Hmm.
heavy wire hook, you bought an owner. That's how it was 15 years ago. Well, at that time, Hayabusa understood that process. And now they have, like, for your round bend models, they have the 114, which is a medium wire, and a 114 HD for your heavy wire. If you
Sure.
go to the EWG model, the 956 is a medium wire, and the 959 is a heavy wire EWG. If you go to the drop shot hook selection, one of your listeners had already talked about that. You could go to the DSR 132 or the DSR 132 HD. So we're able to really, accentuate the importance of matching the right hook for the right presentation, and that's obviously super important. You're going to see on Omnia a couple of new hooks coming out very soon, and we've seen some need for a EWG hook with a narrow gap. So you're going to see the 956 in R come out very soon. It's going to be launched at ICAST. Omnia may have them here in the next 15 days or so. You'll have to check for that on Omnia's website.
Hmm.
But it's basically an EWG hook with a narrow gap for slim plastics. Typically, let's say if you took a Slim Cinco and put it on a 2 or 3/0 EWG hook, no matter which one you bought, it would have a huge gap
Sure.
between the bait and the lure. And now what we've done is created a narrow gap for those slim style plastics. The other hook that you're going to see that's coming out is the crossbred hook. So it's kind of a neat flavor where it's a cross between kind of a round bend and an EWG. Basically, what it's going to give you is the hook is going to have a round bend, but it's going to give you the EWG gap. So a little
Sure.
extra larger gap in a round bend style of presentation.
And where do you
So
see that? Like certain plastics or Texas rig or Carolina rigging
I
or
think
flukes?
Carolina
Like,
rig, it's going to be very, very effective. And I feel like overall, some people don't like, there's a gap between the round bend and EWG. EWG primarily used in very heavy cover situations because you don't want that hook to expose at all. And that's why it comes off of the hook turn and goes straight.
Mhm.
And there's kind of that almost 90-degree little bend right there where the hook turns. And whereas the round bend sometimes pokes through the plastic when you're sticking it through the heavy cover, and that's why you go to the EWG. So this is going to give anglers a medium point between those two processes. So that's where the crossbred is going to come into play.
So
Because,
Aaron
like you said,
says,
Carolina rig, you're not going to be dragging through Carolina rig through a gigantic brush pile. But you can get it through more cover with this crossbred style hook or a Texas rig as well. So
yeah, Aaron says 6-inch RoboWorm 2-watt FPP straight shank. Is that what, like this
that's
one?
that's solid. Yes, that's the one that you showed earlier. That's a
Yeah.
great option, and you can rig it that way, either Texas rigged or open hook. You can run it right down the hook strength straight if you're not fishing over much cover at all. Say you're dragging it over rocks or something of that nature, you can fish it open hook. Or if you decide to throw your drop shot into the edge of some reeds or the edge of grass and you need that hook point covered, that 2.0 is also a great option for that 6-incher as well.
Yeah. I also noticed that your prices are pretty competitive. Like you,
Aaron's fired up. I love it. Best
premium,
hooks, no BS. I'll never switch my drive, dude. I love that. That's a great testimony right there. Thank you,
yeah,
Aaron.
and like pretty like reasonable prices. I feel like they're very competitive. So,
Yes, they are.
uh, let's see here. It was Jim likes the 962 Wacky Worm.
So also with the wacky hooks, the 962, there's two styles of wacky hooks. Same concept as the medium wire and heavy wire with the 962. It's more of a medium wire hook, great for that 6, 8, 10 pound
Mhm.
test range, and it also comes with a lighter guard if you choose the wire guard option on that 962. Then we have a 201 hook. I know, like Rich, you go up to the river, you start getting into some edges of some major grass, and it's current oriented, and you don't always feel the bite, but the fish can grab the lure and get into the grass where you're going to want a little heavier wire round bend hook. Maybe you're throwing it with 15-pound test. I've done this throwing it like at Chickamauga on spawning beds and things like this, and they can run back into the grass. So I'm actually might be using a bait caster to throw that wacky hook, or a heavier line like 12 to 15-pound test line to throw. So I'm going to move up to the 201 hook. And the 201 has a little bit heavier wire, ready and more able to accept those larger pound tests and harder pulling from the angler. And it comes with a wire guard that's a little bit more stout. It comes with a fluorocarbon wire guard. So there's those two options as well. So HellaBass is trying to get every angler the ability to have the best hook for the best presentation based on their technique that's needed to best catch the bass.
Yeah. Okay. So there was some big news today that dropped on social media about some things in the tackle fishing industry.
Okay.
I'm gonna bring it up when we come back in 30 seconds.
Awesome.
Are you ready to reel in your next home purchase or refinance? Supreme Lending's Dream Team can help guide you through the entire mortgage process, from pre-qualification to closing. We have a wide variety of home loan programs in our tackle box, including down payment assistance and first-time homebuyer options. You can ask HellaBass. He trusted us to help finance his home. Contact the Dream Team today by searching Supreme Lending Dream Team, or click the link below in the description, or scan the QR code on your screen.
All right. We're back. Thanks to the Dream Team.
That's a cool
Yeah.
commercial, man. They,
So if
they
anybody wants to get a new house and go down and join Kurt and Amistad and have a second home, the Dream Team can hook you up and finance that dream for you.
That's so cool. Very cool.
Yeah, and he's a good dude. He's in my bass club. He's a fish head. He's a tournament guy, so it's always nice to be able to work with people that understand your passions.
Right.
So yeah, the big news that I teased. So Dobbins Rods was purchased by GSM. It was announced today.
No way.
Yeah.
GSM's buying everything.
Yeah. So they bought Phoenix rods maybe a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Obviously, they bought Yamamoto. Uh, there's some other brands I know they're doing some
Bagley,
collaboration with.
Buckeye, Cuda.
Right.
I mean, it's Rattle Trap. You
Right.
name it, they
So,
bought it.
right. So, the initial thing that they said online is they were just, business as usual, you know, investing in the company. Gary's still going to be a part of it. So it'll be interesting. Yeah, they bought Virtus Rods and Jewel Bait Company. That was maybe just a month ago. So it'd be interesting to see. Hopefully we can see the same great customer service, and Gary's still going to be around designing rods. It sounds like so. Hopefully it's
Yeah.
they just they fuel what's already going and propel the brand and don't change it much. So I mean I don't think we've seen a lot of difference in Yamamoto at this point. Maybe they got rid of some colors that weren't super fast sellers. They might have trimmed some of the SKU offerings, but I don't feel like
Right,
they really tampered with that too much. So I think that's a good sign for some of these other companies as well.
yeah. It seems like they're still and aggressive in developing new products as well. So
Mhm. Sure.
I know with
So I thought that
Yamamoto,
was
they've come
interesting.
out with two products since
The
they
scope
began.
shad.
Yep, Scope Shad, and they came out with that Zaco looking thing. Um, one or two other
They had
things.
okay.
Yamataniki.
Oh, the poop bait. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I want to mention too, if it's okay.
Yeah.
Omnia also sells Rains products. Rains is owned by Hayabusa.
Okay.
Uh, Hayabusa bought Rains back in 2019, and Hayabusa USA began distributing Rains in 2021 after the previous distribution agreement expired. So yeah, check out some Rains products too. If the bubbling shaker is a hotbed for smallies, which you guys got plenty of them
That
up
is
there.
the
So,
the only item they currently
oh, is it?
stock. Yeah. Is the
Okay, because it's hot.
yeah. But
Because it's hot.
yeah, Reigns does have some good tungsten products. Do they make like a wacky jig head type thing for Reigns? I don't
They
like
make
a
a NR jig head, like a Ned Rig jig head,
sure.
but there's been some SKU drops
Okay.
to kind of stay with the most popular items in the Reigns categories. So
Sure. Yeah, cool. So that might be something that'll be expanding.
yep.
Uh yeah, here's a good question. So yeah, who is GSM for the listeners? Would you like to go first or would you like me to go first?
I think it, I, I think it's Gulf States Marketing. Ding ding or
Yeah, I'm
no
not
no.
exactly sure what it stands for, but
Yeah.
they are a is it fair to call them like an outdoor centric private equity group?
I would yeah, a conglomerate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um
That is correct.
so they've been big in hunting.
That's
They
where
have a
they got
deeper
their
roots and a
big
longer
bucks.
history in hunting.
Yes.
But they have been getting more into other outdoor brands, including fishing and heavy into bass fishing.
Correct.
Um, so yeah, and we kind of I don't know all the brands. We could probably look them up online, but they've kind of made a splash, like Rattle Trap, Jewel,
Yeah.
Yamamoto, some of the recent rod acquisitions. So yeah, I mean, I assume they're looking to rival. What is the parent company of the House of Brands? What is the Strike King Lose? I forget what are their
You
Rather
got like
Outdoors,
that is correct. Rather outdoors, and then you've got the primary for like
like Pradco,
Yum. Yeah, Pradco. Yes, exactly.
right?
Thank you.
Pure Fishing. So yeah, I assume GSM is trying to just kind of bulk up and kind of compete at that level where it is kind of looking like we're trending to a place where we have 4 to 5, 6 power brands or power house of brands types companies, and but there is still the Hayabusas of the world and
Yeah.
some other. I mean, we could list a bunch of them.
Couple.
Right?
I was just looking it up while we're chatting, and Big Bite Baits is
Yeah.
GSM. They
Yep.
bought Big Bite, Buka, the swim baits, Buka Shad, Buka. They bought them. I believe that deal went down earlier this
And is
spring.
that I think though they just bought the rights to the smaller um like injection molded mass produced baits.
Mm.
I think. I'm not sure. I think that's more of like a collaboration on that, kind of like what they did with Ketchco, where they ran and licensed those. I don't know that they own all of the like the resin handcrafted stuff. I could be wrong, but that
Gotcha.
I actually talked to Buka briefly at the classic, and we'll probably have him on as a I guess. But you still got the Harg farmers of the world, and so we could
Oh yeah,
there's still a lot of good small niche, medium sized companies out there, but they're becoming less and less.
definitely. Like you had a couple years ago, you had Rapala's parent company purchase up Fish 13,
13. Yeah.
13 Fishing, right? And yeah, it seems like if you become pretty big and successful, or you
And
have
profitable.
a piece, yeah. What's that one? Great Lakes Finesse or
Yeah.
something like
Pradco
that.
bought Great Lakes Finesse.
Yes, yep. So when you start to get a niche and you're an independent like that, they come a knocking to see what the numbers look like for sure. Which
Yeah.
shout out to Ben Milliken. He did a pretty cool YouTube video on this conglomeration of fishing industry. I mean, you could look at it
Yeah.
in
That
the
was probably
boat
like
world,
3 months
same.
ago we did that. Right.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
during the off, like December, January, maybe is probably when it came out.
Yes. Yes. You could look at it in the boat world, with like Ranger Triton Nitro. Um, it's a lot of places, a lot of places.
Yeah. And I think, right. I mean, for Gary, right. He's been on the show a couple times. He's a great
Yeah,
interview, tells great stories,
I've seen.
great
Yeah, he
angler.
does. Yep,
I mean,
great product.
uh, but he turned 65. So, how long can you run a company, and I don't know if Richard, his son, was interested in taking it over, not interested, you know what I mean? But like
Right.
at some point, a family business, if, there's decisions that have to be made. So it probably made sense.
Yep, yep. The company I work with, sponsorship wise, on my Bass Edge podcast, as well as individually running around on tour, run a MegaWare wrap, and
Hmm.
still a family owned business. So there's a lot. I'd say there's lots of them out there, but they're out there, and I would say it's you know just as buy what you like. Don't
Sure.
I wouldn't worry about who owns it or who does, but buy what you like and just be successful with it. That's the biggest thing. I think a lot of times we can get into, and I get buying USA is important. I'm not saying it's not, but it's difficult. It's difficult. So buy
Yeah.
what you like.
Absolutely. Oh, what else is new? I guess I don't know. Have you seen the? This is kind of. I mean, like you were around when the original XPS swimmer was like gone, but
I
like
was.
was
I still have
creating
one.
all kinds of hype. You still got them? So
Yeah,
have you seen the new ones that came out?
I
The comeback
did.
shad?
They
What
look
do you
very
have you looked at
similar.
them in person? Have you
I have
bought some
not.
yet?
I have not seen
Okay.
them yet, but it looks
All right.
very
It looks
similar.
yeah, but decent. I bought a couple. I bought some other stuff with my points, and I just grabbed a couple. So interested to try it out. Looks
It's
pretty
got some
good.
nice They got some nice wagging on them.
Yeah.
That I think the two anglers I knew that were most obsessed with that XPS swim bait was Steve Kennedy and Fred Rambanis at the time.
Yep.
That those were
Because
the two anglers
the
most
year
obsessed.
before we met, Rumbanis was throwing that on Amistad, I think, when he had like a
Yes,
top five.
yes,
They
yes.
might have
That's
mixed in some
correct.
Osprey and stuff too, but that was a big thing. Um,
Yeah, that's throwback. Remember the Baby E?
yeah.
Baby E swim bait? That was a Fish 13 bait, I believe. The
No,
Baby E.
California Swim Babes.
Oh, California Swim Babes, yes. I was thinking also of the Mission Fish. That was a fish, 13
Hmm.
fishing, not 13 fishing, 316, I think it was called. They were
Yeah,
a California
three
company.
sixteen still around. That's Mickey
They moved to
Bruce.
Texas, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Or
moved
he's
to
in Texas
Texas.
now. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, cool stuff.
Yeah.
What are
So
the
I
hot
don't know.
clutch? What this clutch swim bait? We talked about it a little bit, on another show, but What are the hot glide baits out there? What are the ones that are really making the noise?
Yeah, that's a good question. I like glide baits is a thing that I always like on my list every year, right? Of
Right.
like, what am I going to do next year? I'm going to get better with glide baits. I'm going to throw more big swim baits. I'm going to, right? Like, and then
Well,
I
you
buy
need
a
like a
couple every
grand
year.
just to get like 5 or 6 of them.
I did buy a Tado,
Okay.
right? Which is Josh Heron at the Classic,
Oh,
which is like
that's
a
a nice looking.
7-inch glide. I
Yeah.
mean, they're good looking baits. They've got a good reputation. I have not thrown this one. It does have a little chunk of mono or flora because he does hand tune and test every one that he sells, which is a good
Nice.
sign. I feel like.
I would agree.
Um, yeah, I'm not an expert. Um, and also I don't get too super caught up because I do feel like sometimes what is really hot down south, where gizzard shads live,
Yeah.
is maybe not always what triggers the same bass up where I live, where perch and maybe baby carp and bullheads and bluegills and that kind of stuff are more what the bass react to. So,
Right. Right. Right.
um, what about you? Do you got any glides that you throw?
No,
Do you
dude.
got something?
I'm
I mean, in theory, you're on a great playground to be practicing and training with glides.
Yes, you could. Usually, guiding isn't the best place to throw a glide bait. And when I'm getting out there, getting ready to put people on fish, I'm using much more traditional stuff. So that's probably one thing I don't get to do enough is just to go out and tinker around. It seems like not enough time there for that for me. I would like to do more tinkering, but I haven't, and that's why I'm asking, like, what are the hot
Yeah.
glide baits? Because
So I do know
I need to pick some up.
I've had Austin Neary on, who's a guide in the Carolinas,
Okay,
also owner of Fish or one of the founders of Fish Tips. So I don't know if you,
okay.
but
Fishtips.com. I've
he
seen them around.
yeah he guides quite a bit, and he kind of once he gets his guys up and running, he tends to go to the back of the boat and throws swim baits out the back of the boat.
Oh, nice.
So it's like, I'm not, I mean, to be like, right, because like once you put your anglers on fish, it doesn't do you any good to be firing your Senko in right next to them and like catching fish
Agreed.
that they can be catching, right? So, but
Absolutely.
like if you start throwing a glide like out the back or over the channel or over bushes they already fished, you're probably
Yes.
fishing for a different fish at that point.
Totally agree. Yeah.
So there maybe that's an idea. And then maybe you unlock something that then you get to put a glide in their hands and really make something special. I mean, you get a really good tip then.
That's why I need to know what the hot glide baits are.
Yeah.
I need to play with
Let's
them
see.
more. I've thrown some hard, like a couple depths baits. Um, I've thrown some of those. Nowadays, what I would consider the hot glide baits are kind of like replications of the old Seville, but just a lot bigger. And the key to a lot of these glides is speed, like we talked about, like playing that cat and mouse game with glide baits and forward facing sonar, because now you can see the reaction so much more and try to elicit that strike, whereas before it was just like, oh, there was a big one, where'd he go? Now you can actually see the fish. So I feel like now speed with glide baits is really important, and balance of them. So I think just as fast as glide baits are coming on, their innovation and need for innovation is changing very quickly. And there's a couple of small shops that are achieving that large manufacturers can't even touch at this point. So
Yeah. I mean, in theory, it would be a good practice tool if you're practicing when you're guiding to locate fish. Most people say that the glide bait is great for locating fish, Kurt.
that is true. Very true. Thanks for the tips. We have to do well. First, I got to find the right ones to buy. That's why I mentioned that. So we'll get that.
I mean, some people say they like the Arashi, Depth 175.
Clay Williams says glides are junk.
And then he said, I actually have some pretty sick glides. They just don't leave the house anymore. They're just not his deal.
Right,
Um,
right.
so my other so I do have some glide baits. I've got some. I try to play with them a little more. There was one time last year in a tournament in practice where I found the fish with the injected Chad shad.
Okay.
Like I made a couple casts and brought up a wad of 2.5 to 4 pounders on a couple casts, and then I went back to the tournament and fished more traditional baits and finished second in the tournament.
Nice.
So
I think that's when glide baits are good. I remember the first time I remember a glide bait, the 2 times I remember glide baits really playing on the tournament scene is Matt Airy at Smith Lake, the one that David Williamson won on a swim jig. He was using the glide bait to draw up spawners and then recasting to those areas to catch the spawning spots, the larger than average ones, because he could see them on the glide bait. The other one is a Table Rock Bassmaster Open Championship, and Carl Jacobson, the glide, how do you say it? You know how like he
the
says?
Gloida.
Gloid.
The Gloida.
Right, thank you. So Carl Jacobson had a big day. He couldn't put it all together for the entire tournament. It's weather conditional, for his bite, but he had a big day on the Gloid at Table Rock Lake. So now I think if he had forward facing and he was in that same scenario, he would catch maybe more fish on the other days when conditions weren't optimal, because he would be able to see how those fish were reacting to the Gloid. So,
or put it down faster or change it up or something, right? Like you'd be able to make more adjustments faster to either figure out a way to get them to bite or get off of the glide faster potentially.
Yeah, agreed.
I mean, I do have the other an opposite spectrum of I don't know if it's similar. I've started to develop a custom balsa addiction.
Okay.
So this is a little tiny root. This is a hand carved Big M balsa that's painted by Tacklecraft.
Very nice.
And then I got a little bit bigger one as well. This is more like a BDS 4.0 size. But I think that's
that looks hot.
In case you're trying to invent new ways to spend money, that's kind of
So there was a time I went through the old Ed Chambers Zoom crankbait world.
Yep.
And I think I still have 10 of those.
I've only got 2 of those.
E2s and I think they're E2s, E4s.
Yep.
And even at one
E1s,
point
E2s.
I had some tap crankbaits that were kind of a mid-depth Ed Chambers crankbait. But yeah, I got into that world for a while. And I don't use them that much. I don't know why.
If you want to get rid of them, I'll probably give you $10 a piece for them if you want to get rid of those WECs.
Right. I don't even know what they're going for on Amazon.
If you find yourself out at the next Western Open and need some gas money, just give me a holler if you want to sell some, Kurt.
Yeah. I don't see them. I don't see me pulling them out of the box at Havasu, Mead, or Mojave. So
maybe at the to be determined 2025 Bass Nation National Championship.
That just means, Rich, you're gonna have to wait a long time for me to figure out what they're worth and let you know.
Actually, I have a WEC signed by Kevin Short.
Ooh, nice.
Because he was throwing that a bit when he won that Pickwick tournament.
Yes, K Pink coming to Pro Bass Camp this year. He is an
there
instructor. Yeah, he is an instructor.
Nice. At the Amistad?
He's coming to all 3. He came to New York last year, enjoyed it, and so he's retired, semi-retired now.
Yeah.
So
not as involved with Bass Cat boats. He's got a little more time.
Correct. Yeah. So
he's coming to all 3. I imagine he's a really good instructor. I think he'd be really engaging. I imagine that's a good experience for those high school kids.
Yeah, he's fun. It's interesting with the young generation, the high schoolers. They might get Denny Brower, and they're like, "Oh, who's my instructor tomorrow?" And they're like, "Oh, I got the old guy, Denny Brower." They don't even know who the frick Denny is. They're like, "Oh, I got that old guy, Denny." They have no freaking clue. It's so fun to watch. And then I think Denny loves it just as much because he knows he's fishing with some 13 or 14-year-old kids.
Maybe you need to have a video that you send to the kids before, so they get a little history on their professors before,
Yeah.
Send them Eufaula Brower vintage black and blue jig
Oh,
flipping
right,
victory.
right. Or I think he won the classic was on a tube
High Rock?
at High Rock. Yeah, that was on a tube. He was flipping a tube. Do people still flip tubes? I think so.
Might have Saturday. It's
Ish
definitely still a river thing for sure.
Ish is still catching sightfish on his Ish tube, by the way.
Nice.
He jacked. He finished third at Clear Lake, and he caught some big ones doing that day 3.
Nice. Jim Lopez, do you guys throw the chicken jig, the big hair jigs at all?
I'm not a hair guy.
I dabbled a little bit. I had one good afternoon on a local lake where I went out there to practice, get my reps with my front facing on a lake that I was familiar with. And I came across this kind of little grass point with some good thick like coontail milfoil clumps on it. And I could see some movement. Like you can't really
Okay.
necessarily pick out individual fish in
Right.
grass sometimes, but you can tell that there's some activity in there.
Right.
And I caught a nice one on a drop shot. But I could tell there was more fish out there, but couldn't get him to like bite a drop shot or a finesse, even just letting it sit in there, even though I knew I was making the cast and my drop shot was literally sitting right by him.
Right. Right.
So I took the old chicken jig out and I threw it out there and counted it down and slow rolled it over that. And a wolf pack of them darted out of the grass and one smoked it.
All right.
What an awesome bite. It was kind of like a swim bait. Honestly, it was like a swim bait bite at that point. And I caught a couple of nice fish on the hair jig after literally dead sticking a finesse bait in there.
But those are shallow water fish. I generally
I mean like
I
these fish were probably in 12 feet.
Oh wow, that's pretty deep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do love
Like
the hair on the smallies in the spring in the shallow. That is probably the only time I throw. That's probably the only time I have confidence in throwing the hair jig.
I don't like throwing a
smallies
little
in the
one.
spring.
I hate
Yeah.
that little small thing.
Well, you can customize some now, Rich, and put a nice hook into a solid.
No, I just don't.
piece
I
of
just
hair.
don't like throwing. Yeah, I
get
have the
you.
opposite. I just don't have. I don't have like you don't have confidence in the big hair jig. I have
Right,
zero
right,
confidence in the
right.
tiny. I have no confidence in the Canadian dinner mint.
That's funny.
So, yeah. What else? Let's see. I got a little package from Omnia that I got the other day. We could just open that one over here.
Yeah, let's check it
Got
out.
some stuff for the river.
Got some goodies.
I don't
Is this
remember.
for your tournament that's coming up? You got the qualifier coming
Maybe.
up.
Yeah. So yeah. Looks like I bought some.
You showing secrets?
This is. I bought a couple packs of the core tackle Ozark.
Okay.
Thinking that could be an interesting presentation on the river with like a small little creature bait.
Nice.
So here's an example of a company not owned by GSM Outdoors that's growing, I guess. Matt Steffen and Johnny Schultz.
Fish the moment.
Yeah. Did I see those smallie bags from the BFL? Yeah, there was big smallie and big largy bags. So I actually while we were talking here, because always multitasking. So I'll be starting Saturday, I'll be starting to practice for the lacrosse tournament. And it looks like things will be changing for my tournament.
That's a rise.
Looks like it'll be coming up almost 3 feet by the time the tournament starts from where it is now.
Wow. What's normal pool?
Oh, normal is
Like 8-ish?
No. Probably like normal's like probably 5 or 6 in the summer.
Really? Okay.
So it's like this is pretty low for this time of year. Like normally in the spring you're 7.5. I mean, like this is not 9.4 is not like crazy high, but it's gonna feel high because it's been so low for so long.
Okay. I was there for an FLW tournament. I think it went to 13 or something ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, they don't consider it any kind of flood stage till it hits 10. But this is definitely going to move the fish from where they were in the BFL this last weekend. I promise you that. Not that I know where that was because it's off limits, but it's going to keep the fish on the move through. So like when I start practicing here, right on Saturday. It'll be at projected 7.5, and it's going to come up 2 feet to the start of the tournament.
Ooh.
So that'll be fun.
You changing.
Yeah. So that makes things exciting. So next Wednesday, Thursday, hopefully Friday, because that means if I'm fishing Friday, I've made the Grand Lake National Championship.
There you go.
Let's see
My
here.
coworker, I'll give a shout out to Kazuki Kitajima. Coworker made the national championship at the Arkansas River qualifier.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Actually, I had a couple weeks ago. I had Chris Johnson on, the guy that won it, the old school guy with the vest and the old Ranger. Yeah.
That's super cool.
AJ says Okoboji in Iowa took almost 32 pounds to win for 5 fish this past weekend.
Wow. Those are greenbacks?
It could have been a mixed bag. It's probably largemouth or a mixed bag, but the smallmouth are big, but they're not quite as big as the largemouth. But I think there's been some all smallie bags that have been 24, 25 pounds, but the dirty 30s typically
because
are.
I'm like, man, all greenbacks, you're looking at six average
And we're talking
in that part of the country.
northern Iowa.
Yeah,
like
that part of the country, that's big.
That's big where you live.
If I had to guess, it's big everywhere. If I had to guess, that's probably a mixed bag or all brown, all green. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
He says,
No, usually
wow.
the high 20 to 30 pound bags in Bossier are usually green.
Wow, that's phenomenal.
We've got a couple lakes that flirt with, or produce 30 pounds or flirt with 30, and it's Okoboji and Big Stone.
Gotcha.
Both one's a South Dakota border lake to Minnesota, and the other one's kind of a Minnesota Iowa border lake.
Gotcha.
The big bass was 768 in that Bogie tournament.
That's big.
Oh, but that wasn't big fish in the tournament because there was a 8-weight in too.
Oh, jeez. That's funny.
I mean, if you went out on fished a little local derby on Amistad this weekend, you'd probably feel pretty good with 32 pounds, wouldn't you?
You'd win it hands down. They'd polygraph you and tell you cheated. Amistad, right? Amistad was fishing really good in March and early April, and man, it is post-spawn funka dice right now. I mean, it's ugly. It's ugly. You come in with 16, 18 right now, you're gonna win. You're gonna win.
So there's other questions about. So why do you feel bass doesn't go to Amistad or Falcon?
Last time Bass had an open here was 2013.
That's the one Andy Young won, right?
That is correct. Andy won on the A rig 2013 here, and I don't know. Toyotas were coming pretty regular until I think 17 or 18 was the last time they were here. I'm actually very tight with the chamber. It's not that they don't want one. I think some of it, the prices have gone up, and we're a pretty small community, and we don't get additional funding from the state or anything like that. I think that's part of it. But I think probably there's some animosity politically with border situation, even though it doesn't affect us here on lake, what I would consider the lake life. It goes on, within 60 to 90 miles of our area. So that could be a thing, but MPFL was here. Let's not forget. So
I mean, MPFL probably doesn't ask for as much to come as maybe MLF and Bass.
That is correct.
Possibly.
That is correct. There's no question, especially because it was the championship. So they're not bringing all 125 anglers here either. I think it was 30. I forget what their championship.
30 or 40, something like that. Yeah.
Somewhere around 30 anglers. So yeah, that was part of it. But they do have, they're starting to get trending on some internet media. So, but yeah, they definitely don't ask for as much as MLF and Bass. So, I think that's why probably they haven't been here from an elite.
I'm saying that basically, right? You guys kind of had a rough spot, right? So I'm guessing still not the Chamber of Commerce doesn't have, right?
No,
There's not just like
no,
booming industry down there where they're just flush
no,
with cash. So like if they could get a
absolutely not.
deal, they'd be happy to have them come down, but they're not going to get in a bidding war with other communities. It's probably a good way to think about it.
I think that's exactly why NPFL was here. Yes. And I think they had a great time while they were here, by the way.
Mhm.
They rolled out the red carpet. It was great hospitality, not only for the organizers, but the anglers as well. We're a really tight knit, close community because it is a small community. So there you go.
So,
That's where I
I
live.
mean, without giving away, like, I don't know if you're comfortable or not. Do you have any idea what is the range of what tournament organizations ask for? What do we like? Is it
Yeah,
fives? Is it
I think 10 or
10,000?
15 years ago, Bass and like say Toyotas were asking for about 15K. And I would say that price has probably doubled since then. They're probably looking for the 25 to 40K range for
For
those
the AAA
events.
or for the like the tour?
For the AAA. For the
Okay.
AAA. Tour is six figures. Period. No questions asked.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
there you go. So I mean,
Yeah.
definitely. So I mean, like you're talking several tens of thousands to get a AAA event and potentially 100 or more. I mean, but definitely
Absolutely.
way over 50
This
for sure.
this is why you see the
And
same
some of that, it's a mix of
communities.
things, right? Some of it's cash, some of it's like hotel rooms for staff and right providing
Yes.
accommodations, and it's a mixture of things, but that total value is probably right feeding.
Let me
You
just
know,
say the reason why, since we're jumping into this conversation in the
yeah,
politics and the economy of Bassin, is the reason why we see the same lakes over and over and over again is not because Bass and MLF aren't going to try to get new communities involved. The reason is because the same communities want to spend those big dollars because they see the economic impact results. New communities aren't, I won't say they're not believing it, they're not deciding to invest in that for their community. So that's why you see the same communities and fisheries over and over and over and over and over and over and over, is because those are the communities that give up the dollars, the big dollars, to bring those organizations into town. So it's not a big wonder of, man, why do they always go to Murray or Kissimmee Chain or Gunnersville, or you name the fishery that's a major. I mean, I think there was a podcast or a YouTube segment that said, "Hey, look, if you want to be a pro bass fisherman, you need to know these 25 lakes."
no.
Forget about these hundreds of lakes. You need to know these 25 lakes. If you know these 25, and specifically, I think they broke it down to really these 10 lakes are very significantly important for you to understand and know. And that's because it comes back to what we're just talking. Those are the communities that shell out the cash to bring them. Simple.
And people ask, where does this money go? I mean, it's largely covering the operating. I mean, it also isn't cheap to put on uh some of these tournaments, right? Like, I mean, it goes into the op. I mean, in general, it's all going into the operating expenses of the tournament organization, which is paying for their tournament staff. It's feeding them. It's right. It's the travel expenses,
That's correct.
live coverages, website media production. Right, like it's to put on a Bassmaster Elite Series event. If you think about the number of cameras, the live
Yes.
feeds, the studio crew, like this is not your Tuesday night or your weekend jackpot tournament that the tournament director takes $200 out for the weekend to cover his gas, right? Like that's not how it works.
And
Like it's
and
very
a lot
expensive
of
to provide the level of coverage for a marketing team. I mean, like the whole like it's a marketing platform for anglers is right. That's
yes.
what they're trying to provide.
And a lot of the hotels rooms are part of the deals. The
Right.
the chamber will get with the local hotel owners, and they will provide rooms in kind as part of the
Right.
contracts. So that's also a obligatory expense from
Yeah.
the local community to suffice what the organizations need in order to put on the program. Ultimately, yet there's a lot of expense to provide. There's more expense for an elite series obviously, or a BBT than there is for an invitational or an open to create the platform of media, whether it be, you know, how many anglers you have and all that kind of stuff, to how many days of live that they provide, or how much, internet media they're providing the fans, us as watchers. So all of that makes a big difference
Yeah,
in
I think like Bass
what people are investing.
hires a lot of contract photographers and writers
Yes,
to attend these events, right? Like
yes,
things like that. So there is there's a lot of not costs you don't realize. And Bassmaster does pay out more than they take in entry fees.
yeah,
It is, I mean, Bass and BPT are the only ones that pay out more than 100% of the entry fees. So
that's
to
correct.
some degree, I don't know, you say, is the money going to the anglers? I guess if you're paying out more than 100%, some of that money is going to the anglers eventually, right? So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah, you got it.
but yes, the anglers are still fishing for a percentage of their own money for sure.
110%.
Right.
Not
Even at the top
100%.
level.
I didn't mean that 100%, 10% of their own money, but for sure they are fishing
Right.
for their own money. If they were
Right.
to increase entry fees, they would fish for more money, because their money is a large portion of the pot that is doled back out. No doubt. That's why the TAA is so interesting. They charged 5,000 per person to play, and they were very open and concise about the TAA. I'm talking about the Tournament Anglers Association. They had an event on Lake Lanier a couple weeks back that Elite Series angler Chris Johnston won, but they were transparent in how much they would keep for overhead and how much they would put back into the payout from the anglers' entry fees. And if they are able to attract and gain sponsorship, then the thought process is that transparency will continue throughout the life.
For that, where they took very minimal, they paid out 95% or whatever it was. You
Yes.
got some photo galleries. You
Yep.
got a low quality webcasted weigh-in stream,
That's correct.
and some of the anglers went live on their own.
Yes.
So you couldn't watch David Williams crush him on a buzzbait
Right.
live, because that operating expense is what it came from somewhere. So
Yes. You got it. Please let the TAA take off, says Aaron.
yeah, I don't know. I like the idea of the TAA, but if the TAA gets big, I don't know that it in the end will be much different. Once you start to hit mass, the operating expenses and the production will. I mean, people think Bass is making. I mean, Bass is a for-profit organization, right? But
Someone will create a hat. Pound FTA.
but I mean, I don't think. I mean, I think people will be surprised what the salaries for like tournament staff and like what Ronnie Moore makes and what some of those guys make. Like they're not. I mean, they're not. They're living comfortably, but it's not like these guys are like. I mean, living extravagant lifestyles based on their main job at Bassmaster.
I would agree with that.
I don't think. I don't. I mean, I don't know what Ronnie Moore's W2 stuff, but I don't feel like, you know, uh, I mean, they do it because they make a comfortable living and they're getting, they're doing it, but they're doing it because it's also a passion and they like the sport or they love the sport, right? Like, yes,
Absolutely.
Bass does make profits, but I think you would be surprised how skinny the books are for these organizations. I think that's my thought.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Wouldn't that be great to have full transparency? But what corporation does that? That's not even
Right, unless you're publicly traded, and then you're at a whole different
thinkable.
scale.
Right.
I mean,
And
yeah,
maybe that would
Zona.
get
I
them
mean,
some investment money back in. Who knows?
Zona has a lot of things. I mean, like, right? If Zona made so much money doing Bass Live, why would he have a TV show? And why would he have a YouTube channel? And why would he do around and do seminars at Bass Pros? And why, right? Like,
He's got the
it's a
Kurt
whole
Nutt
entire package.
mentality. He's got
Yeah,
he's got the same mentality. You have to. I don't say
Yeah. If
have
the
to.
MC Dave Mercer was making it, why does he have to have his own fishing show and why does he have his own podcast? So, right, like
Yeah,
that should just give you an idea that these guys aren't living like this fat lifestyle off just their Bassmaster gigs.
yeah. I think obviously their personality plays a big role in their uh, payment schedule, and their
Hmm.
popularity plays a large role. They have ways to, you know, uh, garner more interest from fans and bring fans to the game. But yeah, I totally agree. I don't think anybody's making just a mint. But I think some of them are doing pretty dang good, though. I will say that.
Yeah, but I'm not saying like I don't think there's like just I don't think people at Bassmaster are getting filthy rich is all I'm saying. Like
I would agree
you
with
know
you.
what I mean? Like yes, it's for profit. They're making a living. I'm not saying they're eating
Absolutely.
ramen. Yeah, but
Right,
like
right, right,
but I'm not just like I'm trying to paint an
Yeah, yeah.
accurate
No,
picture
I
here. Like
agree. I would agree wholeheartedly. Yeah, I
yeah.
think people get
Uh,
that. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we're seeing Ronnie Moore driving around in an Escalade
The
Denali on the
Lambo.
weekends to church. Yeah, like I mean, like let's.
It's cruising around the Lambo.
Anyways, yeah. So it's. I mean, yeah. I mean, until there is a large influx of non-endemic, which means there's a large new audience of viewers and spectators that aren't necessarily tournament anglers that are
Yeah.
more right. Like, but nothing's gonna change.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. Until we're I mean, like look at all the people that watch golf on Sunday that haven't probably swung a club in 10 years. Like unless we have that kind of start to see that demographic grow, then we're still going to be mostly fishing for each other's money, and it's going to be in a very expensive gambling hobby that we all participate in.
Yeah. MLF got the closest in the
First
format.
year.
Yeah, I would say the first 5 or
Or are you talking
8
about the
years.
field cups?
Yeah. Yeah, MLF with the cups when it was tape delay, nobody knew what the results were, and everybody tuned in on TV to watch what was going on. Um, that was where they strive they thrived, and as
Right.
soon as they went away with that and wanted to do something different, that's where it went the wrong way. So
There
I
you
mean,
go.
they thrived off that to create a whole nother tour, the one I participated in, the selects. And even when we did the selects, it was still in the dark shooting, and nobody
Hmm.
knew what happened until it was aired on television. I did very well in one event. I won a selects
Yep.
event in Arkansas. Yeah, it was in Arkansas, and I remember having we got together at a local shop here, and I had 20 people. I invited a bunch of people down, my sponsors, and they all come down, and some family members and some friends, and they knew obviously I must have done pretty well, but they didn't know the outcome or how the whole thing boiled down, and we all watched it together on the outdoor channel, and it was freaking amazing, and they loved it, and I got so much feedback after that win. It was really cool, and it was that's when you had something special with that MLF
Hmm.
format, the early days. But
But
anyway,
you still
it's
had to
gone.
invest to be a select angler, didn't you,
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was $20,000.
for the year,
Twenty
for a
twenty
season?
thousand dollars for the season, which basically gave you two events. It's essentially $10,000 per event, and then you could qualify for a cups event if you did well enough in the selects event. Which the only person that went, actually, you go over here. The only person that went was the winner. So here's this was my trophy.
So what did the select pay to win?
It paid $10,000. Paid ten
So
thousand
you invest
dollars. Yeah,
so
you
you
invested
invested 20,
20
you
to
won
fish
one and
two
got
events. Got
10,
10 back. That's
and then
correct.
you got to go to a cup.
That's correct. I got to go to a
Was there
cup
a
where I
guaranteed
was.
payout at the cup?
Yes, I think it was 3 grand. It was like 3,000
So
bucks.
you
But
really were investing to get
you were
media platform.
110%. That's correct. You were investing to get media platform. and I was able to generate significant sponsor dollars from that guaranteed TV coverage.
So
I
going
was
into it, like
fortunate.
when you spent the 20, you were able to generate deals based on that.
That's correct. It was an add-on to what I was already providing as
As you were
at
fishing.
that time. It was yeah, I can't I'd have to go back and look at my freaking schedule, but whether I was fishing the elites at that time or the FLW tour at that time, basically I was adding a value as an angler for a media value that I could upsell, including all of my other platforms, whether it was, Bass Edge Radio, fishing the Elite Series, but I was including fishing the MLF Selects, which was guaranteed time on television and guaranteed media through the MLF platform, whether it was internet or YouTube videos and all the things that they were doing with us as anglers as a part of that program. That's correct.
So
And so,
if this is great information, Kurt, if you ever had question on if tournaments are really about winning tournaments and cashing checks, or if they are a marketing platform, I think you learned your answer tonight.
yeah, yeah. Well,
Sure, for the top 1%ers, right? If your name is Wheeler, Canal, Jay Lee, Kevin Van Dam, and about maybe 10 or 20 other guys, sure, it's about winning tournaments and cashing checks. For everybody else, it's a marketing platform.
yeah. Well, it has to be if you want to
Yeah.
survive. Otherwise, you're making a video like Jacob Fouts did last winter. You're like, holy crap, I'm a professional angler and I can't even freaking afford shoelaces. If you don't take a business approach to this national platform of bass fishing, you're not going to last very long. If you went through, I know Pete Robbins, he's a great writer with Bassmaster. He also does some independent writing
Yeah.
as well.
He's not very good
Pete
at fancy fishing, but he's a good writer.
he is very intellectual, very analytical. He's a lawyer or works for the government in some capacity of that. But let me just say that he did an article that showed the what's the right word? The not over, I want to say overturn. It's not overturn. The turnover, the
Sure.
turnover in the Elite Series. He did an article on the turnover in the Elite Series from the 2006 timeframe when it was owned by Bass, or excuse me, ESPN, and when they had all the giant payouts and the $50,000 entry fees and the exceptional media coverage on larger impressionable platforms like ESPN. And, that
Mhm.
was back in the crazy days with Big Mouth Bass and Schooled with Denny Brower. And they had the bass fishing block, right, in the mornings on ESPN. But anyway, he did an article on the turnover from Elite Series anglers, and it was pretty significant. People don't realize when the economy crashed in '08, it's been a long time ago. Now we're talking 16 years, but when the economy crashed in '08, the Elite Series couldn't even fill the fields in 9, 10, and 11. It didn't get back to normal until around 2012 when they could actually fill 100 angler Elite Series
And they had to
platform
reduce the
during those
number of
years.
events to make it easier for people to join.
That is correct. They actually took money for the elite anglers in 2009 to fish in another 11 event series, which cost 55K. And then they came back about 2 months later when they realized the economy was in total disarray and the anglers didn't have the money to really put out that or not even close to a full field. And then they changed it. I think they went to 8 events at that time. I think they cut it back to about 8 events, but it was around $40,000. They cut the entry fees back to that year because no matter what, it was 5,000 a tournament. So
And then obviously less travel, which is also a big part of expenses
yes,
for anglers.
yeah.
So
I think in 2009 they were going to go back to California and they cut that back out of the schedule. That's correct. Yeah, crazy.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Well,
you start asking me the right questions, Rich. We can go into some deep stuff in this tournament
I feel
world
like we
now.
have to like a part 2 after hours member only where we really get into the juice of the what was it like fishing the Elite Series back in the day?
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely different than today. I was fortunate enough to go through several years of, you know, um, marketing success, which is what created my as you called me, a journeyman, and I think that's a great great word for that. I've been part of this since 2005, so it's been, dude, I mean, going on 20 years. It's crazy. Not that the last 5 years has really been as a full-time angler by any means, but I walked away in 2021, um, because I just had different goals. Um, just had different goals. So, and I say I walked away. I walked away from
From the
national.
FLW at the right.
Yeah, yeah. Well, at that time they had turned it into the MLF Pro Circuit.
That was right when it was changing. Yeah.
I fished the Pro Circuit for a couple years.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. When I was like, it was when they weren't paying. They were keeping a lot more of the money than they were paying back. In 50th place, 30th to 50th was playing $8,000. Well, go cash a check on an $8,000 tournament or an $8,000 payback when it costs $5,000 to get in and solid $2,500 for expenses. That math, the math already is kind of sketchy. That math is a joke.
The math is even worse on the Bassmaster Opens, and there's 150 guys doing it this year, fishing all
It
nine.
is. It is even worse over there right
And
now.
then you got guys
But
like me
but it's a
fishing one
different
division.
platform. Yeah.
Yeah.
The cost of it is extremely, even at 9 events, it's much more manageable from a passion standpoint rather than a living, making a living standpoint. Um, I think that Bassmaster still has some room to grow in that category. Um,
Mhm.
how they grow, I don't know where it's gonna lead to. I think you could have some, $1,500 open tournaments that qualify you for some $2,500 EQ events that ultimately get those folks to the Elite Series. But it's probably a step no one's ready to take right now. But I mean, they're certainly very successful in the number of events that they put on. But they just don't put on as many events as MLF. So it's a different business scenario.
Yeah,
Anyway, I don't want to get into that.
good times. So I don't know. Does anybody else have any questions? I don't know. We've kind of went for about almost 2 hours. I do got some like stuff I actually got to get done and get ready for this tournament after traveling all week. But I appreciate you coming on. So if you like some of Kurt's takes or you think he's got some good information, if you didn't catch us earlier, he does run the Bass Edge Radio podcast that can be found on your favorite MP3 or on YouTube. There should be a link down in the description to Bass Edge Radio, and I've made a few cameos over there. Kurt has been kind enough to bring me on, and we kind of do some short segments on some of the tournament stuff and highlighting some of that stuff, which has been fun.
Next show is going to fire off on Sunday. Rich
There
will
you go.
be a guest. So
Yeah, there you go.
break down some
So
more
if
tournament
you
bass.
don't get tired of me yapping a couple times a week and you want more hella yapping, you can check out Bass Edge Radio and get some bonus content.
Right.
And I did drop a tournament video on Monday that was from last year because I'm trying to get all my video edits all of a sudden crammed in before I fish my first tournament next week from last year.
Got to create some storage space.
I think I found somebody to help me start editing, so maybe this will be a good thing. I'm working on a partnership. I'm trying to invest in the channel. I'm hiring some help to get more editing done, to do more stuff. So,
Very cool.
but appreciate you coming on, sharing some
Yeah, man, I
knowledge,
had a
sharing some
great time.
nuggets.
Great time.
Sharing some
All right.
info on Hayabusa, which I think is an up and coming
Yes.
brand that seems pretty affordable with some high quality hooks. Lots of cool stuff. I think we'll do it
Absolutely.
again.
Sounds fun, man. I'll be here ready to rock and roll. don't dig too far into my career. People will have all kind of crazy questions, and if you ask me the right question, I will give you the truthful answer. So whatever.
So go ahead. Feel free to slide in
whatever
to
y'all want to
Kurt Dove
know.
Fishing Instagram DMs tonight. He'll be up all night answering them.
Hey, and anybody that's watching this post live, I guess it's still live after live, right, Rich? So if you
Yeah.
want to hit something up in the comments, I will certainly chime right in as well. I'll peruse it for about a week or so, and then
Yeah.
I'll hit you back if you got something.
If there's any really good
I'll let
juicy
you know.
contents, I'll screenshot them and text them to Kurt. And then
Yeah, there you go. That'd be even better. That'd be even better.
Shane says, great show. Awesome. Appreciate it. So if you guys came in late, I think the replay is definitely worth it, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube or listening on your MP3. But I appreciate everybody. As always, here to help you guys catch more big bass and suck less.
Adios. Enjoyed it.